Greetings, Dr. Joseph Martin. Kalpas and Yugas are reckoning of time and universes. This is another of those videos in the spiritual science of the universal laws of creation. So I want to detail first what the four aspects are, the four series of periods in the laws of universal creation. First, obviously, is creation. That would make sense. And out of the dark matter, the dark energy, simply comes matter. And as we know in this particular universe, perhaps under 20% is matter in our universe. The rest is dark energy and dark matter, which I've been calling cosmic consciousness, the uncreated energy of this universe, and the Christ consciousness, or Krishna Buddha consciousness, is the created matter of the stars, galaxies, and everything on Earth. Well, let's look at the second stage. It's the stage of maintenance or stable kind of organized patterning that just remains stable for a long period of time, depending on what cycle we're looking at, and we'll get into that in a moment. The third of the four stages is the destruction of all that's in the universe, or in this particular aspect of what we're looking at that has been created. Everything is uncreated, if you like, or destroyed. And the fourth stage is the period of rest or silence that follows the end of the destruction, and it's the interim period of nothing going on before the next cycle of creation starts. Now you can see in the stories and cosmologies of the Jewish people in Genesis, with the story of creation there, and in the Mayan stories of creation, which are in cycles of 20s, the units of 20 we use, which we'll see again when we look into the Hindu tradition. What I'm going to do is start with the smallest and work out to the largest in terms of these cycles and time. And I want to expand your notion of time. We're so stressed these days with time because we've moved from an analog living of time just by the stars, the sun, and the moon, and the cycles of the seasons, to within the last 120, 150 years, a digitalized time that is creating more and more speed and stress, and we say in Navajo, Koyaanisqatsi, life out of balance, because the digitalized side of just our left brain, our logic, our mind, is driving most of us crazy. We're so stressed out. We have so many mental illnesses, emotional illnesses, depression and sadness, and of course a lot of rage around all these aspects. And so we need to get a larger, broader understanding of time, and to realize that we're immortal, eternal beings that have existed for, in fact, trillions of years as souls, divine sparks. I'd like you to now just ponder that as I continue here, that you, as a soul, are infinite and eternal and trillions and trillions and trillions of years old. That should put things in perspective for your 9-to-5 day or the cycle of your life. Now, let's start with the small cycles of creation, maintenance, destruction. And red blood cells in our bodies, they last about 20 minutes. And the Drosophila melanogaster, the fruit fly that we study in genetics, they last about 20 minutes. And then their cycle is over. There's the mayfly that lasts 1 day. There are the monarch butterflies and all the other butterflies that last for 3 weeks, maybe at the most 4 weeks. And monarchs actually a little longer than other butterflies and moths, and so on. And of course the cycles of the season, spring, summer, fall, winter, and the cycles of the human being, which we'll get into in a little bit. Let's define what we're talking about here. What is a kalpa? Kalpas are terms from Hinduism and then later Buddhism that refer to time cycles, great time cycles of the universe, and also obviously pertinent to ourselves. But we're a very short time span here on Earth. One kalpa, according to the Hindu and the Buddhist tradition, is 4.32 billion years. And as far as scientists have ascertained so far, our Earth is only 4.54 billion years, so just over one kalpa long. It's not very long at all in terms of the great cycles of time in the universes. Now, we know this from the Hindu books, the Mahabharata, the Puranas, and so on, where it's mentioned about the kalpas being 4.32 billion years for one kalpa. And there's a book by Buddha Gosi in 430 and the Common Era after Christ, and from Sri Lanka, who wrote a book called Vishuddhi Magga, it's called, or The Path of Purification, in which he talks about how many times a soul has to come back in order to purify itself and to work through to becoming a bodhisattva, obviously a saint, and then a Buddha. And as I've mentioned before, and as you know, there are many Buddhas, and Siddhartha Gautama Buddha is only the latest in a long line of Buddhas. And someone once asked him how long did it take him to attain perfect enlightenment, and he said, during 3 kalpas, so that's 4.32 billion years times 3, and do your math here, over 13 billion years of constant reincarnations, that's how he purified himself through those wonderful adventures and journeys that he took in order to get to the state of infinite Buddhahood. Now, let's look at the Buddha's views of the different cycles of kalpas, and then we'll do the Hindu version. Now, we're starting with the smallest levels of kalpas in terms of time cycles, and then we'll move up to the largest. And there are 4. And remember, we're working within the laws of creation, maintenance, destruction, and emptiness and stillness. So an Aya Kalpa is defined in Buddhist principles as anywhere from 10 years up to what we actually call, and I'm just going to refer so I can say the right word here, it is a Sankhya. A Sankhya, from 10 years up to a Sankhya, and then back to 10 years. That's what one Aya Kalpa, a very small time frame is. A Sankhya is a very kind of perhaps difficult to decipher word. It doesn't refer to any numbers as the Hindu tradition likes to do. It just has some kind of an infinitude to it. But an Aya Kalpa is the determination of how long a human being will live on Earth. And it all depends on the level of morality on the planet of the cultures at the time. In times of great social justice and so on, people can live longer. And of course, we know records of Methuselah in the Old Testament, and we have records in the Hindu tradition in all the palm leaf records we have of people living over 500-600 years, and sometimes even 900 years. I believe Methuselah was right up there. But in times of great moral injustice and greed and warfare and murder, the average lifespan of a human being can really shorten in terms of how long they're able to stay in the physical body. And in our time right now, in the 21st century, it's deemed to say that many people will only be living, the shortest time span would be 10 years, but as we know, there are many young children who don't even live that long, and there's reasons for that. But the greatest number of years a human being could live in our immoral, unjust time, a very dark time we're in of warfare, is around 100 years. And that's this Aya Kalpa, the length of time a human being can live. Then we have an Anta Kalpa, A-N-T-A-H. You can read the description here for that. And that's the time it takes for one Aya Kalpa to grow from 10 years to, again, to a Sankhya, to some kind of infinitude that's programmed by the cultural time of the darkness of the age or the brightness of the age in terms of morality and ethics, actually, and then back to 10 years. And it's the ending of one of these systems that is determining how how long the Antakalpa will live or exist. Now, in this phase of, remember, we're following the laws of universal creation here. There is there are three ways only in which the mass extinction of the people or the civilization, or in fact the planet, because we're talking about planets or solar systems and other moons and other stars, doesn't pertain only to planet Earth. And there are three ways in which they can become extinct, and that is through wars, hunger, and plague. Interestingly enough, just this week again in the news, all three are very prominent in the news that you listen to: wars, hunger, and plague, including Ebola in Africa and elsewhere now. The third stage, we're getting to larger stages of time cycles here, is the Asankhya Kalpa, which is 20 Anta Kalpas, and it's 1/4 of a Maya Kalpa, which is the fourth stage. And the fourth stage, of course, is Maha Kalpa, which means Maha meaning great, a great time cycle. And a Maha Kalpa can end in one of three ways, either through fire, water, or wind. And as I've mentioned in some of the First Nations prophecies, in particular the Hopi prophecies and what we determine is coming into the sixth world, and this is also in reference to Dr. Rudolf Steiner, we're moving into the sixth post-Atlantean age. I'm trying to correlate some of these sciences for us here now. That fire, water, and wind are some of the ways we've ended earlier historical cycles of humanity and the earth previously. But right now, in this time, we're finding that we could look at all three of those as happening. Fires all over the world, Australia, California, many other places in the world, including Russia and Greece and so on. Water, lots of flooding everywhere, and tsunami waves, and also wind, of course, increasing numbers and severities of hurricanes and tornadoes and typhoons all over the world. So obviously we're in a stage of what we could call extinction of an earlier creation cycle, which will come to an end with the destruction. And I encourage you to listen to my video of Mahakranti, which is another Hindu term that Babaji and all the great Hindu sages and mystics and teachers have used to show when and how the Mahakranti, this particular Mahakranti, will come to extinguish all the things that need finishing, so that something new can come, something better can come as we move into a brighter age, out of this dark age of Kali Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, into a higher spiritual age of consciousness, of morality and purity of heart and mind, in the coming Trecha Yuga, and then into the paradise of the Sat Yuga, which will last over actually 1,000,000 years. So these long time cycles, we need to see our lives and our various reincarnations in these long time cycles. Now, there are other ways to determine kalpas, and here I'm going to move from the Buddhist tradition to the Hindu tradition, which, as you know, is an earlier tradition upon which the Buddha based his own reckonings. So in the Hindu tradition, which is much more organized in terms of numerical numbers than the Buddhist tradition, which wasn't really totally focused on numerics, we have what's called, and this is in quotation marks, a regular kalpa, which is 16.748 million years. We have a small kalpa, which is 16 billion years. We have a medium kalpa, which is 320 billion years. And we have a great kalpa, which is 1.28 trillion years. Now, the Buddha, just to go back to some of the stories about the Buddha was asked by his students, his more advanced students, so how long does the kalpa last? You're not giving us any numbers, so can you explain this to us, please? He says, okay, so imagine, here's two analogies or metaphors the Buddha actually used and gave to his students. Imagine a cube That's 16 miles by 16 miles by 16 miles. And once every 100 years, one tiny mustard seed is placed inside the cube. Just one little mustard seed every 100 years. And the kappa will last longer than the entire filling of this 16-mile cube. And then he used another metaphor. He said, imagine a mountain. It's a huge mountain that's 16 miles by 16 miles by 16 miles. So this is so massive, it's much larger than our largest mountain, Mount Everest. And imagine every 100 years, someone takes a silk cloth and just makes one wipe on the mountain. How long would it take for the mountain to disappear? Well, the mountain will have disappeared before the Kalpa is over. So you get an idea of the length of the time frame that we're looking at here. And remember, your soul is immortal, so you are involved, and you should have some remembrance in your soul as I'm talking to you about the length of the great journey and adventure that we're all on as souls of divinity and spark and source. Well, now, and here's some other terms that I want to mention. This is going back to the Hindu tradition about how long these things, these cycles of time, last. So, as I've said, a kalpa for the Buddhist and the Hindu cosmologies is 4.32 billion years. And that is called the day of Brahma. And you know in Hinduism that Brahma is the creator. That's a day of Brahma. And one day of Brahma equals 1,000 Mahayugas. At some point you'll want to look up the word yuga in your online dictionary. Now, so one kalpa, or 4.32 billion years, equals 14 manvanta, or which in each manvanta includes 71 yugas, and that would be 306.72 million years. And so 1 year of Brahma, remember we told you that a day, so times 360, is actually 3.11 trillion years. And so that is a very long time. 3.1104.04 trillion years. Now, that's apparently as long as the universe lasts. One Brahma year, that's a day of Brahma times 360. So a universe, according to the Hindu tradition and in the Buddhist tradition as well, lasts 311.04 trillion years. That's the universe we're in. And how many universes have come before? The Buddha was asked this once, and he said, over 51 universes have come before this, and each one has lasted then 311.04 trillion years. Now, that's an interesting thought. Not to mention the fact that we know from quantum mechanics that we have parallel universes at the same time that are different from the time cycles I've just quoted to you. And the fourth dimensional time, as Einstein said, is relative time. And we know that the fifth dimension is even more relative and in a time warp, time-space warp, than the third dimension. I've simply been giving you third dimensional time suggestions here of cycles of the universe and great cycles of time. So there are multiple universes all at the same time. And I would suggest on a psychological, psychospiritual, transcendental, immanent level that in fact each person, because they've been around for so long, and perhaps there are some souls that are a little older than others, that we all are a universe unto ourselves, but we're all part of the one web of life. There's only one great energy field, a quantum energy field in the universe, and we're all just a little cell in the great, beautiful, pure body of the universe and the multiverses. In our native way, we do know that there are multiverses. The fact is that this is all for joy and for play, for lila, as we say in Sanskrit. It's to have an adventure, have a journey, to be open to the journey and open to the adventure. You know, unblock your emotions, open your mind, open your heart, and really enjoy the path and the process. It's not about the 9 to 5 workday, and it's not about the money in your bank. It's never about the money in your bank. It's about the joy and the growth and the play and the fun and the laughter, the human heart-to-heart connections. In a time of great darkness and evil and greed and selfishness, it's about having some fun and creating some joy and kindness for other people as well, not only your children, but everyone you meet. Consider them to be a sister and a brother. Time is precious. It is the one thing in a human life that we can never get back. With effort, you can always get your peace of mind back. You can always get your health back. You can even get some money back very easily. There's always ways. You have lots of options because you're so skilled and ready to do this. But one thing you'll never get back, other than, if you hurt your friends, of course, and misuse their trust, then that's something you'll never get back. So be very kind and careful with your friends and always respectful and compassionate. But other than that, time is the one thing we'll never get back. Make sure you make the most every day of all the hours of the day that you've had. I start my day with meditation and I end my day with meditation. If you really would like to evolve and grow and become happy and joyful and peaceful and loving in your heart, do meditate. That's the one thing. It's the most valuable thing you can do with your time. Meditate on time itself and all these kalpas and yugas that I've suggested. Meditate on the lives you've had before and meditate on the life you're in now. Meditate so that you can progress and evolve and grow every day. Every day more meditation and deeper meditation than the day before. Every day a new adventure. And every day, every person you meet is a new friend or a young or old friend who you've redeemed relationships and trust and happiness and confidence with, in loving them. So in loving yourself and taking yourself on these great adventures, I wish for you and I inspire you, I hope, for a great series of time cycles every day that will give you great joy and blessings. All love and good heart to you, Dr. Joseph. Namaste, Om Namah Shivaya. And by the way, I wanted to say that the word Om, A-U-M, there's a silence, embeds in it. The A is for creation, the U is for maintaining, the M is the destruction, the ending. We close our lips at the M, and the silence ever after is the rest until we start another cycle of creation with all the skill sets we've been given by the goddess. All love and blessings, Dr. Joseph.